Are you dating an emotionally unavailable woman? And what does that even mean? And how would you know if you were dating an emotionally unavailable woman? And if you do know that, why do you keep attracting emotionally unavailable women? Those are the questions and more that we're getting into today in this video. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com, and I'm glad you're here with me. So first, let's kind of define what an emotionally unavailable woman is. I've actually been accused by my now ex-wife of being emotionally unavailable, but I don't really think that's accurate. In fact, I think if anything, she was deflecting onto me her own emotional unavailability. But let's look at the traits of an emotionally unavailable woman so that you're clear on what those are, and then you can decide if the woman that you're seeing is indeed emotionally unavailable. So emotionally unavailable literally means that they are shut down emotionally. They are afraid of emotional intimacy. It's not exactly unlike an avoidant attachment style that I frequently talk about in a lot of my videos. They're not open to sharing their feelings. They get shut down emotionally if you bring up tough, emotional, intimate subjects. And they can react with hostility or evasiveness, or they just shut down and they won't say anything. They basically stonewall you, the classic silent treatment. They are desperately afraid of emotional intimacy. Why are they afraid of that? Well, for the same reasons that we talk about in some of the avoidant attachment style videos that I have. Basically, they got hurt at a very young age, probably by their mother or their father or both, and they learned that the best way to keep themselves safe from people that they love is to kind of keep everyone at arm's length and to never let anyone in too close, because when you let someone in close, you're vulnerable. And when we let ourselves be vulnerable, we are opening ourselves up to potential hurt. And they were hurt at a very young age, probably in a very dramatic way, and they don't want to ever experience that again. So they just keep everybody out here, and then problem solved in their mind at least. Now, the next question that guys want to know is they tend to see this kind of pattern a lot. So why do you keep attracting emotionally unavailable women over and over and over again? What is it that you might be doing? What signals might you be putting out there? What energy might you be putting out there that is drawing these women to you? Because let's be honest, it can be very hard to be in a relationship with an emotionally unavailable woman, a woman with an avoidant attachment style. It can be very difficult. I know my ex-wife was one, and it was very challenging to have any level of emotional intimacy with her. I was starved for emotional intimacy, essentially. Now, I'm not talking about sex. She was happy to have sex, and we had sex frequently, and the sex was great. That's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about connecting on a deeply intimate, emotional level. That scared the hell out of her, and she virtually never let me in to that degree. And I was starved for that emotional intimacy, and I never got it from her, and I often felt alone as a result of that. Now, my own attachment style tends to lean towards the anxious attachment style, and often the avoidant and the anxious are drawn together, but her reaction from her childhood trauma is to keep everyone out here. My reaction from my childhood trauma is to kind of pull everybody in and hold them close. And those two things eventually backfire between the avoidant and the anxious. But why do you keep attracting emotionally unavailable women? That's what we want to look at now. Essentially, it comes down to what is called repetition compulsion. I've talked about that in other videos as well. I'm going to use an analogy here. It's like the child of a smoker who died of lung cancer, but that child then becomes a smoker themselves, despite knowing firsthand just how dangerous smoking can be. And why do they do that? Because it's familiar, and there is comfort in the familiar, even if we know it's harmful to us. It's just the way it is. So we become conditioned to certain patterns of behavior from a young age, and those behavior patterns become familiar to us. So then we seek those out in adulthood because there is comfort in that familiarity. That is essentially why you keep attracting emotionally unavailable women. If you're a guy, chances are your mother was emotionally unavailable to you, and there is familiarity in that, and you're seeking it out because of that comfort of the familiar. And in order to get past that, you've got to heal that wound inside of you, that attachment wound. Best way to do that really is probably just to seek out traditional therapy for a time, maybe go once a week to a psychotherapist and just talk about your issues and talk about some solutions and uncover. A lot of us tend to bury childhood trauma, and we pretend it never happened, and we bury it down deep, and we just don't acknowledge it. So you've got to get into therapy, and you've got to talk about the root of your issue. Talk about your mother, your relationship with your mother, how she treated you, why she was the way that she was, and how that made you feel. And the more you do that, the better better you're going to get. You're never going to forget these things, but you can get to a place where those things no longer control your actions, and that's what we want. Real quick, if you like this video and you want to see more like it, please hit that like button for me. It just takes a quick second of your time, and it's a great way to say thank you to me for making these videos, because it helps me grow my channel, helps the YouTube algorithm recognize my channel and show it to more people. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. So now we've identified that you are indeed frequently attracted to emotionally unavailable women. We know what they are, why it is that they are that way, but can a relationship actually work with a woman who is emotionally unavailable? Because let's be honest, the vast majority of people go through this life not being willing to work on themselves, not being willing to put in the steps and the time to actually improve themselves, to recognize their own issues and to take the steps to correct and hopefully erase and eradicate those issues so that they can be a better person and a better partner for you. Most people aren't going to do that. So if you are in a relationship with an emotionally unavailable woman, can it work? The first thing that you're going to have to recognize is that she is going to need a lot of time and space away from you. And if you have an anxious attachment style like I tend to have, that can be really hard. We have a fear of abandonment when we have an anxious attachment style, and we're desperately afraid of getting dumped and getting left. The irony is, the more we try and hold somebody close to us who has that avoidant attachment style, that emotionally unavailable style, the more likely it is that they actually are going to leave us because they feel smothered and controlled. And that's just a vicious cycle. So you've got to be willing to give her time and space away from you without smothering her and without being needy and clingy and desperate. You've just got to resolve yourself to being that way. Let her come and go. It's kind of like how Coach Corey Wayne describes women as being like cats. They kind of come and they go, and sometimes they jump in your lap and purr. Other times they run away and you don't see them for a while. And if you try and pick them up and put them back in your lap, you're going to get clawed and they're going to take off. You got to let cats or women come and go as they please without trying to control their actions. And that is especially true if we're talking about an emotionally unavailable woman. Then you've also got to recognize that you're going to have to tread really lightly and really slowly if you want to have some emotionally in-depth conversations. Because if you go too fast, you're going to trigger her and that fight or flight response is going to kick in and she's going to shut down. So if you want to have some emotionally deep conversations, you've got to go about it the right way. Tread really lightly and really slowly, and don't try and accomplish too much in one conversation. Do share your feelings with her, but don't expect or demand that she share her feelings back with you. It's okay though to talk about your feelings, and it's okay even to talk about how her actions affect your feelings, but don't do it in an accusatory way. Don't do it in a demanding way. It's usually better to lead with questions than statements, but it's okay to say things like, well, when you do these things, it makes me feel this way because of these reasons. And something like that is fairly disarming. It's not likely to get them on the defensive. Just don't overload them and bombard them with a bunch of those things all in one conversation. Again, you've got to take things slowly here if you don't want her to shut down. And the last thing people usually want to know is, can an emotionally unavailable woman ever learn to open up? And of course the answer is yes. We all have the capacity to change and become a different person at any time. All we really have to do is to have the self-awareness of what our own issues are, and not everybody has that, unfortunately, and you can't tell her that she's emotionally unavailable if she doesn't recognize it for herself. That will just piss her off and drive her away. But if she has that awareness, she knows how she is, that's like the first step in moving in the right direction. It's kind of like when that alcoholic has that moment of clarity and they recognize that I am an alcoholic. They have that moment of clarity. They haven't stopped drinking yet, but they're now 50% of the way towards fixing their issue because of that moment of clarity. So if she recognizes that she's got challenges with being emotionally unavailable, that's great. That means she's halfway to solving those issues. But the best way to deal with that for her will be for her to go to therapy, to seek out some professional help, giving her some things that she can do and put into practice in her life that will actually help her get past these things and get past her fear of intimacy, essentially. And you, the things that you do, and especially the things that you don't do, can go a long way towards comforting her and making her feel safe, heard, and understood. Because if she doesn't feel safe, heard, and understood, she's never going to open up to you emotionally. So you've got to take things slowly with her when you have those conversations like I talked about earlier, and then really listen when she does speak. Don't just wait your turn to talk like a lot of us do. Really listen listen to what she's telling you. Repeat back a few things that you heard her say so that she feels like you really listened and understood what she was trying to say. Then let her know that you're there for her, that you are not going anywhere. She can tell you anything, and it's not going to drive you away. It's not going to cause you to lash out at her. It's not going to cause you to shut down, and it's not going to cause you to criticize her, because ultimately that's probably what she's afraid of. If she's really honest and really emotionally vulnerable, it's going to backfire and blow up in her face. That's what she's afraid of. So you've got to reassure her and comfort her and make sure she's really clear that that's not going to happen no matter what she tells you. And then you've got to follow through on doing exactly that. But if you can do that with her, make her feel safe, heard, and understood, and she can get some therapy once she has acknowledged and recognized that she has this issue, she's well on her way towards getting past this issue. And then the two of you are well on your way towards having a much healthier and much more communicative relationship that will be far more satisfying for both of you. Anyway, I hope this video helps you. I'll see you in the next one.